The San Antonio Spurs over the years have featured many great players, from the likes of Dave Robertson to Tim Duncan, and now Victor Wembanyama, who's heading into the second season of his young NBA career. He had historic numbers at the end of last season, and I can't wait to see how well he does this season for the San Antonio Spurs. And what better way to do that and see how things play out by doing a My GM here on NBA 2K25. As you can see, we're here on NBA 2K25 servers. Literally just dropped like 2 minutes ago at the time I'm recording this. This is going to be the first episode of the San Antonio Spurs series. So if you're all ready, I'm ready. Let's get into today's video and let's get started. Can't wait to get into the simulation and this series. I'll explain everything what I plan on doing in this series very soon. But first, of course, we have Victor Wembanyama at top of the roster. He's up to a 92 overall, which is incredible. Only 20 years old, 7'4", 210 pounds. Looking at the numbers from last year, he had 21.4 points, 10.6 rebounds, 4 assists, just over a steal per game, and 3.6 blocks per game as well. Crazy. I'm hoping this season that the 3-point percentage is going to go up to hopefully maybe like 36, 37. That would be nice. The free throws going up as well would be pretty good. But I expect his points and rebounds and, really honestly everything to go up. I would not be shocked if he literally averages like 25, 26 a game this season, maybe like 12 rebounds or so, 5 assists, a steal, perhaps up to 4 blocks a game. I mean, this is a real probability for Victor Wembanyama this season, which is absolutely insane to think about. But I really think he's going to be able to get that job done. And I think part of the reason that the Spurs and Victor Wembanyama will be able to do that this season is because of the addition of Chris Paul into the roster. Of course, Chris Paul is no longer the player that he once was when he was still playing for the Hornets and the Clippers and everything, but I still think he's very solid. And as you see on 2K25, he's tied for the second best rated player with Devin Vassell, who we'll get to talk about momentarily here. But Chris Paul, I think, is going to be a great addition onto this San Antonio Spurs squad. I mean, obviously, the scoring isn't going to be what it was before when he was averaging, high like 18, 19 points per game. That's not going to happen. The assist, I think, will still be fine. I still think he can average about 10 points, 7 assists a game this year, which is going to help Victor Wembanyama crazy. Because you imagine like the lobs this season from Chris Paul to Victor Wembanyama, all the crazy plays that Chris Paul is going to set Victor Wembanyama on. It's insane to think about, and it's going to be great for Victor Wembanyama's development. If Chris Paul does retire at the end of the season, it'll still be great for Victor Wembanyama. But who knows if Chris Paul stays another season? That's something we'll actually do in 2K25 in the simulation. We'll see what happens with him. Next up, we have Devin Vassell. So Devin Vassell, I think, is a very solid player. He was up to 19.5 points per game last year. I'm hoping in the 24-25 season, he's going to be able to crack up to 20 points per game this year, which I really like. If he can average 20, 4 and 4, I think that'd be pretty good for the San Antonio Spurs. They gave him a whole lot of money, as you can see, that contract of 5 years, $135 million. So hopefully he's going to be able to play up to the ability of that contract. And I definitely think he's going to be able to do so, although injuries have been a bit of an issue for his NBA career. Not really last year, because obviously he still played 68, but the year before, only 38. That's not really the best for a young player like Devin Vassell. But I think the Spurs have a great piece in Devin Vassell, and hopefully, he does pretty well in the future, and I'm definitely going to be highlighting him as much as possible in this series. I'm a big Devin Vassell fan, so I think that'd be great, and he's going to be a great duo with Victor Wembanyama. Next up, we have Keldon Johnson. So his points per game did go down last year, and I think part of that is, of course, due to Victor Wembanyama. But I still think Keldon Johnson can be a very solid player for the San Antonio Spurs in the future. Whether he starts or comes off the bench is definitely going to be a factor in this. In real life, he came off the bench. I plan on starting him on this, but I'm not really set in stone on that. I could have Harrison Barnes start. We'll get to that momentarily, but I think and have like Keldon Johnson come off the bench. However, we'll see how that plays out. I think I want to do what's best for possible for San Antonio Spurs. They have a whole bunch of solid young players on this team, but they're not still good enough to take the next step forward. I do think those San Antonio Spurs could get into the play-in tournament this year. I think if all things go well, I'm not gonna put it out of the picture. So either way, that's my plans for Keldon Johnson. Next up, we have Zach Collins on this roster. Zach Collins has a decent sized contract. I think he's pretty solid. I don't know what Popovich was really doing at the beginning of last year, starting Victor Wembanyama and Zach Collins at the same time, because obviously once they moved Zach Collins back down to the bench and Victor over to the 5, that's when Victor truly took off. And so I do think Zach Collins is a very solid player, but he should not have been playing out there with Victor at the same time. Regardless of that, he's going to be a great bench addition for this San Antonio Spurs roster. Trey Jones, I think, is also a very solid player as well. He saw a big role decrease last season because, you know, he was benched at the beginning of the year because they were starting Jeremy Sohan at the point guard position, so he was coming off the bench. Now this season, he's also going to be coming off the bench behind Chris Paul as his backup. I don't know how many minutes Chris Paul is going to be playing and everything, but Trey Jones I still think is solid enough to go around. Harrison Barnes was someone that they acquired due to a trade in the NBA offseason this season. 2 years, $37 million on his contract. You know, he's still okay, pretty solid player still. You know, obviously he's not at the peak he was here, you know, when he was playing for Dallas and everything those couple of years. Regardless of that, you know, he's 32 years old. He's definitely someone I'm going to try and probably ship off at some point, you know, during the season. I don't really see like him playing too many minutes for us, but I do think he's a solid veteran piece that can help out players such as like Devin Vassell, Kellen Johnson on this roster. So we'll see how that plays out. Jeremy Sohan did start at the point guard briefly last year for the San Antonio Spurs, and then they moved him back over to his natural position, which is the power forward position. I understand Popovich doing that though was to get him some more like playmaking ability, because I guess Popovich really wanted him to be like the Spurs version of Draymond Green, if you will. Regardless of that, I mean, I still think he did pretty solid last year. You know, pretty much 12 points, 6 rebounds, 3.4 assists. Things definitely be a bit better in the 3-point percentage shooting department. You know, 31% isn't the best. However, he definitely has some good skill sets that are helping him in the future going forward. Malachi Branham didn't really play too many minutes last year. He saw a slight decrease in his points per game. How many games did he play last year? You know, he did play 75 games, so excuse me as I was incorrect on that statement there. I think Malachi Branham is a decent piece forward going for the San Antonio Spurs, and they want to develop him as much as possible. Again, he's only 21 years old, so there's still anything's possible for Malachi Branham. You know, Julian here, I think he was starting for a bit last year. I think he's another solid piece, but I think due to this season, because of Harrison Barnes now on that roster, his minutes are going to go down, so we'll see how that plays out. I don't really plan on playing him too much, but I do think though he's a very solid 3-point shooter, and he could, you know, could be like a sniper off the bench for the San Antonio Spurs. Sandro, I'm not going to really talk about the rest of the Spurs that too much, although I do want to talk about Stefan here for a moment because he was obviously their draft pick, the 4th pick this season, and I do want to try and get him as many minutes as possible, but it's going to be difficult because of, you know, how well this Spurs roster is actually rounded out. If you think about it, I do want to get him some minutes, hopefully, you know, maybe like 18 to 20 minutes per game or so hopefully we can get that job done. There's other ones like, you know, like Blake Wesley, who was playing decent minutes for the Spurs last year, only 15 minutes per game or so, and that obviously plays a factor in his development. But again, the Spurs have so many players, young players on the roster here, such as this player right here, such as Sissoko, who's also in his 2nd year of the NBA. They got a whole bunch of young players on the team. There's going to be some tough decisions that the Spurs have to make. So yeah, that's a brief overview of the San Antonio Spurs roster for this upcoming series and in real life as well. Let me show you the rotation that I plan on doing for this series. So here's what we're rocking with: Chris Paul at the 1, Devin Vassell at the 2, Kellen Johnson at the 3, Jeremy Sohan at the 4, and of course Victor Wembanyama at the 5. Coming off the bench is going to be Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Harrison Barnes, and Malachi Branham. Unfortunately though, I was really trying to find a way to get Stefan here some minutes, but unfortunately I really can't find a way to get him some minutes at the moment. So if someone goes injured, probably if Branham gets injured, then he will get some minutes in there, but we'll see how that plays out. Otherwise I might send him down to like the G League or something, developers, because I think he's going to be a great piece forward for the San Antonio Spurs, but I don't really know how I can play him. Let me know in the comment section below. You know, I'm not really set in stone for this lineup. Let me know down in the comment section below. Now, something I do also want to talk about briefly is like how I'm going to really do this series in general. So like you guys have a brief overview of how I want to run the San Antonio Spurs series. So what we're going to do next episode of the series, episode 2, will be the game against the Dallas Mavericks, so the opening night against them. Hopefully that goes well for the San Antonio Spurs. I'll be playing some games like here and there. You know, it kind of really depends on who the opponent is. I don't really want to play like, no offense, if it's like the Utah Jazz or something, which I don't know why they play them, you know, 3 times here in the first month or so. I want to play like some, you know, better opponents and everything, so we'll see how that plays out. And yeah, so I also plan on making like a whole bunch of trades and everything too, you know, such as the Harrison Barnes trade, which I was mentioning about prior. I think he would be pretty interesting piece to trade in this series, because, you know, he's not really fitting with the rest of the team. Or, you know, Chris Paul is a different story because Chris Paul's going to help Victor and everything. Harrison Barnes, while he could help other players like Kellen Johnson and everything, he doesn't really fit the timeline, because look at the age of all these players on the roster. We'll do it like this way. I mean, look at them. Look how many young players are on this roster, and then you have, you know, Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul. So we'll see how that plays out. I want to try and set this team up for, you know, long-term and success for the San Antonio Spurs. I do plan on doing about maybe like 3, 4, 5 years potentially of the series if things go well and you guys enjoy the videos. So yeah, I mean, that's my plan for all of this. I can't wait to get some game action, can't wait to get the series started, and I can't wait to, really enjoy 2K25 at the same time. So yeah, that's gonna be the conclusion of today's video. If you enjoy it, please be sure to like and subscribe for future content. I do plan on making a whole bunch of 2K25 videos with the coming days. Obviously, the game literally just dropped. The time that I'm recording this, it dropped like 15 minutes ago. I can't wait to see what the future of 2K25 has in store for not only myself, but the rest of the NBA 2K community. So I'll see how that plays out for everyone. I also plan on maybe doing like a Lakers franchise as well. We'll see how that plays out. But my sole focus is going to be on the San Antonio Spurs. I did start this last year. I won't lie, I did a San Antonio Spurs last season, but I stopped only a couple videos in. This season, I want to take like full control and do like a whole on series of the San Antonio Spurs. So yeah, that's my plans for this. Hopefully things go well. Next episode will be opening night against the Dallas Mavericks. That should be fun. I can't wait to see how that plays out. So again, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Have a great day.